Hello friends, I am Arpit and I am here with today's analysis. Today is 22nd of February and we are going to deal with three very important topics which are in news. The Chandigarh mayoral elections. The Supreme Court has quashed the Chandigarh mayoral elections which happened last month. The reason, actually the Aam Aadmi Party and the Congress candidate was securing around 20 votes. The BJP candidate was securing 16 votes. But the returning officer invalidated 8 votes of the Aam Aadmi Party Congress candidate, which resulted in 12 votes to that candidate, 16 votes to the BJP candidate, declaring the BJP candidate to be the winner. But the Supreme Court has testified that the returning officer wrongfully cancelled those 8 votes secured by the Aam Aadmi Party and Congress candidate. That is why Supreme Court are using its powers under Article 142 of the Constitution quashed these elections. Next is India-Greece relations. The Greek Prime Minister has been invited as the chief guest for the Raisina dialogue, which is being conducted from 21st till 23rd February in New Delhi. He clearly said that despite the war in Middle East, that is Israel-Gaza conflict, let us continue our pursuance of India-Middle East-Europe economic corridor. Greece, which happens to be the doorstep to Europe, Greece, which operates or controls the world's biggest cargo fleet, around 20% of the cargo fleet in the world is owned by Greece, happens to be a natural partner in India Middle East Europe Economic Corridor, which was envisaged last year in G20 summit of September 2023. And the next topic is the Indian economy a review. This is a series which have been undertaken by us, a precursor to the economic survey. And in today's session, we will be discussing about India's external economy, means what has been India's import-export, what has been the situation of current account deficits or the forex reserves, the rupee dollar, I would say stability or the exchange rate. All these things we will see. Are the Indian imports and exports rising, particularly exports, are they rising or not? All these facts and figures we will see over here in this particular topic. Now, the first topic, that is Chandigarh mayoral elections. The Supreme Court quashed the result of January 30 elections for Mayor of Chandigarh after finding that the presiding officer Anil Masih had deliberately invalidated 8 ballots cast in favor of Aam Aadmi Party Congress candidate. Now, in total 20 votes were polled for this candidate, out of which 8 votes were invalidated. So 12 votes remained. Whereas on the other hand, the BJP candidate, he secured 16 votes, so he was declared as the winner by this presiding officer. Now the Supreme Court has found out that this invalidation of these 8 votes were wrongly done. They were not eligible for invalidation. They were actually validated votes. So the Supreme Court has said that this is wrongly done. 20 votes were there in this candidate's favor and hence he should be the winner, not this person. The court used its powers under Article 142 of the Constitution to do complete justice and protect the sanctity of electoral democracy in our country. After all, we are the world's largest democracy, and if these kind of activities do happen, the apex court has to step in and restore the ideals of democracy. Now, allowing such a state of affairs would be destructive of the most valued principles on which the entire edifice of democracy in our country depends. Even for civil servants, the one of the most important duties is to participate and conduct free and fair elections. If you are the district magistrate of any district, it will be your responsibility to oversee or undertake that elections are conducted in a free and fair manner. You will be the one who will be announcing the results. So, this impartiality, fairness has to be there, and then only you will be able to uphold the ideals of democracy. Now, what happened exactly? The petitioner, obviously petitioner will be Aam Aadmi Party Congress candidate, is reflected to have polled 12 votes. Reflected was 12 votes. The 8 votes which are treated as invalid were wrongly treated to be so. So 12 plus 8, actually they were 20. It follows that Kuldeep had in fact received 20 votes, while Manoj Sonkar, the BJP candidate, won 16 or had 16 votes. So accordingly, this elections were quashed because these 8 votes, they were wrongly invalidated by that presiding officer. We accordingly order and direct that the result of the elections as declared by the presiding officer shall stand quashed and set aside, the Supreme Court bench said. And said that this particular candidate of Aam Aadmi Party and Congress who has secured 20 votes should be the mayor. It did not cancel the elections. It only quashed the results and turned the results in the favor of these, Aam Aadmi Party and Congress. Now all this was done by the Supreme Court due to its powers it has under Article 142 of the Constitution. So it is very important for us to know and understand that article as well. This article provides a unique power to the Supreme Court to do complete justice between the parties where at times law or statute may not provide a remedy. In those situations, court can extend itself to put a quietus to a dispute in a manner that would fit the facts of the case. And this is what exactly the Supreme Court has done. The necessity for incorporating such an article into the Constitution was spelled out in the Constituent Assembly because this can be, considered as or interpreted as hyper judicial activism or hyper judicial interventionism in the executive's affairs. But the framers of the Constitution felt that this provision is of utmost significance to those people who have to suffer due to the delay in getting their necessary reliefs. They can be using this. Actually, this is not the first time Article 142 was used by the courts. Bhopal gas tragedy, Article 142 was used by the courts to provide timely rehabilitation and I would say relief remedies to the victims of that particular gas leak incident. 1984 it happened. So multiple times the courts have used this particular unique power given to it by the Constitution under Article 142. This time also this was used. Next is India-Greece relations. Now why we are studying this? Because the Greek Prime Minister is here for the Ricina dialogue. He is invited as the chief guest. And here he said about India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor. Is Greece part of it? Yes, Greece is part of it. And he said that despite the Israel-Gaza war, this India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor should be pursued. We should start work on it and pursue it diligently because this can be a game changer for all the member countries which are part of this economic corridor. Greece particularly is the doorstep to Europe. We enter Europe by Greece. So that is why Greece is very important. Greece owns the biggest merchant shipping fleet. Around 20% of the merchant ships in the world are owned by Greece or Greek companies. Now this makes Greece very important. So we would not want to, sever relations or ignore a country like Greece. So apart from this India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor, other focus areas of the talks with the Indian Prime Minister of the Greek Prime Minister were doubling trade. Presently the trade is $1.9 billion as of 2022-23. We need to double it in the times to come. Mobility and Migration Pact to legalize migration. This was also talked about. Co-production and cooperation in military hardware. This was also talked about. Actually, this was talked about when last year the Indian Prime Minister visited Greece. And he happened to be the second Indian Prime Minister after Indira Gandhi to visit Greece. He was also conferred with the highest civilian honor of Greece at that time. Order of Mykonos, something like this is the name of that particular award. So these are other focus areas. So let us see where Greece is placed in the India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor. So from here, via sea route, we reach UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Israel. In Israel, there is this Haifa port. which you are seeing. This Haifa port is basically an Adani port. This is basically under stress as of now. Then Greece. Piraeus port is there in Greece, which is part of this India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor, and this is basically the gateway to Europe. From here, we have countries like Italy also, which are part of this India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor. So from here also we get an entry into Europe, and from Greece also we get an entry into Europe, like this. Now, if you see the entire India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor, it is like this: India, sea route, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Israel. Then you enter Italy here, Spain, Germany, part of it. Germany, France, part of it. Spain is over here. And Greece is over here. This is Greece. This is Greece. From here also we can get an entry point into Europe. So this is Italy. This is Germany. This is France. This is Spain. So, likewise, it is there. Now, this initiative of India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor, as I said, it was there inaugurated during the G20 summit in 2023 in New Delhi. Our Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, and the President of USA, Mr. Joe Biden, co-chaired a special event on Partnership for Global Infra and Investment, PGII, and India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor. Actually, PGII is an initiative of the G7 countries, so-called the developed world. These, countries are also aiming to build infrastructure all across the world as an answer to, or as a counter to, China's Belt and Road Initiative. The difference between China's Belt and Road Initiative and PGII is that in Belt and Road Initiative, it is government to government funding, means government of China will be funding the government of other countries where infrastructure has to be developed. But in PGII, the private players are also being invited, and so is in the India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor. The government will be there. Like, for example, government is talking with UAE and Saudi Arabian governments that RITES, basically railway group it is in India, which will be responsible for building or constructing railway lines in those countries. So this is going to happen in, private sector will be there and government sector will definitely be there. The event aimed at unlocking greater investment for infrastructure development and strengthening connectivity in its various dimensions between India, Middle East and Europe. It comprises of Eastern Corridor connecting India to the Gulf region and a Northern Corridor connecting the Gulf region to Europe. So as we saw it over here, this is the Eastern Corridor connecting India with Middle Eastern countries, the Northern Corridor connecting Middle Eastern with European countries. So these are the two corridors over here. Okay. Next is leaders of the European Union, France, Germany, Italy, Mauritius, UAE and Saudi Arabia, as also the World Bank, participated in the event. These are also known as the founding members of the India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor. It has not yet started as of now. Conflict came, so maybe this also has become a reason why this has not started as of now, this particular project. But yes, in the time to come, you will see significant developments in this particular project. As I told you that in UAE and Saudi Arabia, construction of railway lines by RITES, RITES, which is a public sector undertaking in India, will start soon, because when the Prime Minister visited UAE this time, a few days ago, talks were there on this. When the French President came as the chief guest to this year's Republic Day, we also had a talk on this with respect with the French President, because France is also part of this initiative. We can see this is France, the red one. Sorry, France is this one. This is France, this is Germany. So with France also we had a word. So let us see what happens with this in future. And now the third topic, Indian economy, a review. We have been doing a series and we are almost at the fag end of this series. Tomorrow probably it will be over. The second chapter which we are covering covers 4 blocks. Domestic economy, we have already done. Macroeconomic stability, already done. Human resources, already done. And today we are going to talk about the external economy. how India's imports and exports have been performing. What is the situation of current account deficit, capital account surplus? What is the, I would say, situation of the rupee dollar stability? All these things we will be talking about. Now, about talking about India's imports and exports, we here will first divide exports and imports into merchandise. Exports and imports means goods, and the second will be services. Services are at times called as invisibles also. Now, India's exports have shown remarkable progress. Merchandise exports rising by more than 50% and service exports by 120%. When I talk about merchandise exports, the highest ever merchandise exports of USD $451.1 billion was achieved in financial year 23, and this is despite of the fact that global uncertainties are there a lot in the global market, which are reducing the demand or suppressing the demand. If those global uncertainties would not have been there, then this figure would be even bigger. Merchandise imports also grew by 16.8%. When I talk about service exports, this has been India's forte. India has created or achieved a niche, especially in the software exports or IT exports. Since 1991, the LPG reforms when we did, it is this sector which has been, performing well. But the good part is that merchandise exports have also started to rise. Means our manufacturing sector, that is the secondary sector, is performing decently. The Make in India scheme is working. So when I talk about service exports, USD $330.3 billion in FY23, we achieved this as well. Now trade balance, it is basically import minus exports. So since we are importing more, so I keep import ahead of exports. It was $189.2 billion in April-November 2022 and $166.4 billion in April-November 2023. It is reducing, means it is getting better. When I talk about current account deficit comprises of import-export plus the returns on FDI, FPI, or FII plus remittances. All these are part of current account. This account is in deficit because we are importing more. Returns on FDI and FPI are also going out. Remittances are coming in. Exports are coming in. But remittances and exports are not able to compensate this. That is why this current account is in deficit. Service exports with a cumulative annual growth rate of 7.1% in FY12 to FY23. We've seen this. Combined with CAGR of remittances of 4.5% during the same. Remittances have also grown and India is receiving the highest amount of remittances. In FY23, $112.5 billion was received by India, which was the highest in the world. The second highest was Mexico, $60 billion. Then the current account deficit for first half of financial year 24 dropped to USD $17.5 billion from USD $48.8 billion. Broad-based improvements in both merchandise trade and invisibles led to this improvement of declining current account deficit. Next is capital account. Capital account is all those investments coming into India. These investments are coming into India in the form of FDI or FPI, FII. That investment amount is called is covered under capital. And India has a capital surplus because incoming investment in India is more than the outward investment by Indians abroad. And with this surplus in capital account, we compensate the deficit in the current account. We do it like this. Okay. So the negative balance on the current account in half 1 of financial year 24 is compensated by the positive balance on the capital account, resulting in accretion of foreign exchange reserves of USD $27 billion. So our foreign exchange reserves have increased by $27 billion because we had surplus in the capital account. We compensated the current account deficit, and after that also we were left with $27 billion which we added in our forex account. The upsurge of 88.2% year on year in capital account during half one of FY24 is mainly on account of higher inflows of foreign investment into India. If I talk about FDI, the situation globally is, not so investment friendly if you see. But this is not the story with India, or this is not the case with India. Despite this, India continues to chart its way forward and remain a preferred destination of investment because investors all across the world are feeling the fact that if you have to invest anywhere in the world right now, India is the safest. Because India is the fastest growing economy, there is political stability over here. There is no such geopolitical conflicts, or India is not as such involved in any geopolitical conflicts all across the world like other countries are. Apart from it, we have a young workforce and large middle class population. This large middle class population is the primary reason or the primary driving force of generating demand in any country. So this is basically the scene. When I talk about FDI inflows over the years into India, from financial year 5 to financial year 14, FDI inflows $305.3 billion. GDP at that time $13.55 trillion. Cumulative GDP of these years, 2.2% of GDP was this. When I talk about India's cumulative FDI in financial year 15 to 23, it was $596.5 billion. Cumulative dollar GDP was $23.8 trillion. FDI inflows 2.5% of GDP. So this has definitely improved in terms of proportion of GDP and in absolute terms. So you can definitely see this almost double. Now other important indicators, rupee dollar exchange rate from I would say FY14 to FY23, 60 rupees per USD to 80 rupees per USD. This is where the rupee has fluctuated. Forex reserves, if I talk about India's forex reserves, right now it is $623.2 billion as of 29 December 2023. And external debt of India is $635.3 billion. Forex is $623.2 billion. So Forex is around 98.1% of our external debt. And external debt as a proportion or as a ratio to GDP is 18.6% as of now at the end of September 2023 from 22.4% at the end of March 2013. So in March 2013, the external debt ratio to GDP was higher as compared to now. So these are some important indicators with respect to the India's external economy which we need to take into account. And with this, we end today's session. I will be meeting you tomorrow now with more such informative news pieces. Till then, you guys very well know what to do. Not repeating it today. Namaste. Jai Hind.